time to introduce our speaker, David. He's a native of Muskegon who's lived in the Kalamazoo area for over 50 years. He's a graduate of Western Michigan University and was a librarian for 35 years at the Kalamazoo Public Library until his retirement in 2005. He has enjoyed his post-working years engaging in his favorite pastimes and passions of music and theater performance and art classes at the Kalamazoo Institute of Arts. He also enjoys the companionship and love of his significant other, Lisa, and his cat, Felicity. Welcome, David, to the pulpit.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. I really appreciate the opportunity to think out loud about my subject. Title of my talk is Reflections on Stoicism. But first, I'd like to do what I call an icebreaker. This goes back to my days at St. Martin of Tours Episcopal Church, from which I transitioned to this church. And we had guest speakers there too, only in the Episcopal Church, they have this rather quaint term called supply priests. So one of our priests, a retired priest there, and his wife came to our church after they retired. This Father Joseph Nyman and his wife Judy. Father Joseph was the pastor of St. Mark's Episcopal Church in Paw Paw, I think for 24 years. And he had a very interesting life. He studied in Rome, and I believe that was where he met his wife, Judy. And at the time, he was a Roman Catholic priest, and she was a nun. But they decided to marry. And obviously, you know, you can't be in the Catholic Church and do what they're doing and be married. So he was a really interesting man, very intellectual. I believe that he published quite a bit of his writing. His sermons were always very polished and very deep, often on global issues. But he liked to begin his sermons every time with what he called holy humor. So that's what I have for you today. Moses was sitting in the Hebrew ghetto in despair because he could find no way to influence or coerce Pharaoh to release his people from bondage. Suddenly, a deep and resonant voice spoke from the clouds. "Moses, Moses." "Here I am, Lord," he replied. "You, Moses, do not despair. I will release a rain of frogs on the Pharaoh. I will smite him and his people with the plague of locusts. I will take the lives of the firstborn in every family in Egypt, while those of your families will be spared. And I will clear a path through the Red Sea, so that your people will have a safe passage to the promised land." Moses was amazed and awed, but he managed to stammer, "Oh, thank you, Lord. What can I do to earn your favor and protection as I lead my people to deliverance and freedom?" The Lord said, "Yes, you, Moses, you're not off the hook yet. After you enter the promised land, you must submit an environmental impact assessment report." Okay. Yeah. Sometimes his jokes are really funny. All right. I begin my thoughts on Stoicism today with three quotations from prominent figures who reflect this school of philosophy from the 1st century AD to the 20th and the 21st centuries. The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own. And that is from the Discourses of Epictetus, one of the leading Stoical philosophers who lived from 55 to 135 AD. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Reinhold Niebuhr, 1892 to 1971, Christian theologian, and that's always called his Serenity Prayer. The goodness inside you is like a small flame, and you are its keeper today and every day to make sure that it has enough fuel, that it doesn't get obstructed or snuffed out. Every person has their own version of the flame and is responsible for it, just as you are. If they all fail, the world would be much darker. That is something you don't control. But so long as your flame flickers, there will be some light in the world. That's by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman from the Daily Stoic. I'll say more about him later. Deciding to offer today's message, thank you, Miriam, for the title, I quickly discovered that I don't know much about the philosophy of Stoicism and trying to compare it and contrast it with Unitarian Universalism. I don't really know much about that either, yet. I'm a fledgling student just out of the nest of two vast systems of thought and action. So my message is first of all for myself to discover where to look for good and evil, serenity, courage, and wisdom, and be responsible for the flame of goodness in myself, just as we all do as a beloved community, symbolized by the lighting of the chalice each Sunday. There has been a renaissance of this philosophy in modern times, and I began to investigate books and online resources about it. Two of them are the Daily Stoic, 366 Meditations on Wisdom, Perseverance, and the Art of Living, by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman, whom I just quoted, and Holiday's website, also called the Daily Stoic, which I recently joined and have been sharing the contents of both sources with my beloved lady Lisa over coffee almost daily. That usually results in fruitful and lively conversations for both of us. The foundation of Stoicism, according to Zeno, its Greek founder who lived from about 335 to 265 BC, are the four cardinal virtues: practical wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. In his book, A Field Guide to a Happy Life, 53 Brief Lessons for Living, published in 2020, Massimo Pigliucci explains them as follows. Practical wisdom is the knowledge of what is truly good for us, as well as what is truly bad for us. For the Stoics, this boils down to the understanding that the thing that is good is virtue, or excellence of character, and the only thing that is bad is vice, or defect of character. Everything else, including the sort of things most people desire, such as health, wealth, fame, and so forth, is indifferent, meaning that they may be reasonably selected or preferred, but are morally neutral. In other words, being wealthy may be nice, but it does not make you a good person, or vice versa. Courage is the propensity to act morally in the face of danger, or in situations where one would rather stay put and not expose oneself to criticism or retaliation. Justice means acting in a way that is fair toward other people, treating them as you would want to be treated by them, and always respecting their dignity as human beings. Temperance is the inclination to do things in right measure, neither too little or too much. Having been a Christian for most of my life, I see all kinds of connections in both the Hebrew scriptures and the New Testament to the above statements. Epictetus, whom I quoted at the beginning of this message and who followed Zeno as an exponent of Stoicism, added the concept of the dichotomy of control to its practice. Professor Pigliucci explains it thus: some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and in a word, whatever is not our own doing. Seneca, my namesake, except for the letter L, a Roman Stoic philosopher who lived from about 4 BC to 65 AD, sums it up when he contrasts virtue, which is up to us, with externals, which are up to fortune. I joined the Unitarian Universalist Church because I wanted to be free of dogma and theology in which I no longer believed, to make my own decisions on the spiritual nature of the word and a higher power, if there is one, and to be in a community of like-minded people who foster and encourage each other's search for truth. So, as I began my investigation of Stoic philosophy and principles, I began to notice some similarities between those and the 7, now 8 principles of Unitarian Universalism. The Stoic practical wisdom, the search for what is good and what is bad, might fit quite well with UU Principle 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Stoic courage, acting morally in the face of danger, and justice, the Stoic golden rule, might stand beside UU Principle 2, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. And temperance, doing things in right measure, neither too little or too much, may accord with Reverend G's message earlier this summer about this or that, and serve as an overall guide to putting into the effective practice of all of the 8 UU principles. As I continue my novitiate of learning more about Stoicism and Unitarian Universalism, I've arrived at maybe a naive notion about how they intersect and complement each other. UU places supreme value on freedom and the right of individuals to act on their own conscience, develop their own connection to the sacred, and understand the profane. From what little I've read, it seems to me that Stoicism offers disciplined and practical ways to live everyday life and to deal with the ups and downs, highs and lows, progress and reversals, and the triumphs and tragedies that we all must face in our lives. Finally, all of the Stoic philosophers emphatically assert the necessity to remind ourselves daily of the end of our lives, our mortality, our death. As Ryan Holiday states it in a recent entry in his Daily Stoic website, it is not surprising that one of Seneca's biographies is titled, "Dying Every Day." After all, it is Seneca who urged us to tell ourselves, you may not wake up tomorrow when going to bed, and you may not sleep again when waking up, as reminders of our mortality. Or, as Epictetus urged his students, keep death and exile before your eyes each day, along with everything that seems terrible. By doing so, you'll never have a base thought, nor will you have excessive desire. In his Meditations, the culmination of Stoic thought in ancient times, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who lived from 121 to 180 AD, wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." I take that as a personal reminder that this late in my life, I'm in my 80s, to pursue a life of virtue now and not wait. All right, I'm going off script here. I'd like to share with you a message from my nephew, Joshua Ward. Joshua lives in West Olive, just outside of Holland. He's the father of 3 children, 10, 4, and about to be 2. At the time that his wife delivered Grayson, their last child, almost immediately after she was diagnosed with stage 4 inflammatory breast cancer. So less than a year later, on September 1st of last year, she passed away, leaving those 3 children in the care of my sister, my older of my 2 sisters, and her husband, who lived near Lawton, who insisted that Josh simply could not raise those kids on his own. So they gave up their comfortable retired lifestyle and took those 3 children into their home. They're with them 5 days a week, and Josh gets them on the weekends. Quinn, the older boy, and Sawyer, the girl, go to school near Lawton. So at the time of the anniversary of Heather's death on September 1st, Josh posted this message on Facebook, and I would like to read that to you today. A year ago today, Heather went to heaven. If you're not aware, we found out that she had breast cancer the day Grayson was born in October of 2020. A bittersweet day indeed. Imagine witnessing and experiencing the most incredible miracle of life being delivered while finding out that you have stage 4 cancer. Our lives were turned upside down. While I have described the last 48 hours of her life privately, I'll never discuss it in a public setting. But unfortunately, that memory will never leave me. I created this little project for that very reason. This also included a very extensive gallery of photos of Heather. It's lovely to look at. So he did this so that we and I can remember her when she was full of life, to honor her and a gift for the people who loved her most. While working on this, it became very clear that there are 3 important takeaways that I'd like to share, and they're simple. Live in the moment. For the people that you love the most, cherish every single second that you get with them. You never know when it will end. That's how I live now. I'm passionate, intense, and intentional with the people I love the most. And when I'm with them, there's nothing else on my mind. It's just them. Second, if you're struggling with a situation, may it be relational, job, or family related, and that situation isn't elevating you or helping you become the best version of yourself, change it, fix it. Take the necessary steps. Time is the most valuable currency, especially when you have so many people that love and care for you. Please don't wallow in scenarios that don't create light in your world. Every day is a gift. Lastly, live your life that the fear of death can never enter your heart. Take risks, shoot your shot, whatever. As mentioned above, time is whittling away. If there's something you want to do, whether that be a hobby, a career change, or a relationship you want to pursue, go after it and don't hesitate. And if you encounter rejection, that's okay. As they say, rejection is just a redirection and course correction to your destiny. Thank you all who continue to reach out and support, love, and pray for us. So among the 63 replies to Josh's message, I wrote, Josh, I've gotten interested in the philosophy of Stoicism since COVID, and your message is a perfect expression of that bimillennial outlook on life and death. I'm grateful for it. So I wish peace and love to Josh and his family, and to my sister and her husband, and I wish peace and love to all of you. Thank you.